Hello and welcome to my book talk. Today I will be discussing the short novel called A Chance to Dance for You, as well as the picture book called Worm Loves Worm. So to begin my book talk, I am going to talk about the short novel called Chance to Dance for You by Gail Sidoni Sobat. This novel was published in 2011. The author, Gail Sidoni Sobat, is a Canadian writer. She's an educator, a singer, and a performer. She has a degree in education and art, as well as a master's in English from the University of Alberta. As an author, she is known for her controversial themes. So this book, actually, the theme is about sexual orientation and sexuality. She has done a good job of talking about the controversy and trying to eliminate all the stigmas that kind of surround it. Okay, now let's jump into the action. So the entire story is told from the main character, Ian Trudeau's perspective. He's a dancer. He loves to dance. He's a part of the environmental/human rights club at his school. He's unashamed to express himself, even about the fact that he's gay. He has a great support group. He has his best friend Tilly, his mom, his grandparents. He also has his dance instructor, who goes by Madame. She is very supportive of Ian. Throughout the book, she actually kind of discourages the pursuit of love, just because a broken heart kind of affects your ability to dance. But otherwise, she is super supportive. Next, we have Jess Campeau. He is the high school football star in the story. He has an extremely homophobic army dad and a football team. So the last thing that Jess can be is gay, or at least that's how he feels. But unexpectedly, Ian finds out that Jess Campeau is not straight and is actually attracted to him. So for that, I'm actually going to give you a little reading here. Remember that the story is told from Ian's perspective. So he says, "I was in the gym locker room, changing. Did I mention that I loathe and detest the gym change room? It's been the site of much derision and humiliation, so I loitered in the can, waiting until everyone else had changed and left the room. Then I went to my locker and was fiddling nervously with the lock. Guess who sneaked up behind me? He should have been long gone to his next class by then. He was definitely violating my boundaries. Not that he cared or even knew about those. Jess Campeau spun me around, pressed me into the lockers with his ripped torso. I could hardly breathe. And then he kissed me on the mouth. I mean, really kissed me, deeply, and I confess that I melted and kissed him back. Then he hissed in my ear, 'If you tell anyone, I will rip your balls off and stuff them in your mouth.' How romantic. Then I watched as the love and the enemy of my life straightened up and strutted out of the guys' change room." So the kiss kind of sparks a sort of relationship between Ian and Jess, though it seems prone to failure as Ian is out and Jess is not. So the story revolves around Ian and Jess, their families, and the consequences for Jess if anyone were to find out that he's gay. Unfortunately, at the end of it all, it's not Jess that eventually has to face any consequences. So you'll have to read the book to find out what I mean. It is a good read. Now, the reasons that I really enjoyed this novel were that it faced social issues head on. This particular novel is focused on sexual orientation and what it means to be gay, what it means to be out, what it means to be closeted, how people treat you. So I really enjoyed a quote from Ian's best friend Tilly when they attended a human rights meeting for their club. So it goes as follows. "I wonder why people are so afraid of love. Of different kinds of love. I just don't get it. Why aren't we more afraid of racism, of war? But love? It just doesn't make sense." So I chose to present this quote from the book because I have often wondered the same things. Why we choose to focus on the kind of love people have instead of focusing on much bigger and more important problems in our world. I think that this book poses a lot of really important questions and that this would be a great novel to read to like grade 8 to grade 12. There's definitely some language in the book that might not be appropriate for younger grades. There are a lot of sexual slurs, we'll say, some very mean language towards gay individuals, so definitely maybe a little bit older, hard to say. But a final note that I would like to leave you with from the book is this. You begin to think about people who want to kill you just because of the person that you love, or the someone you're attracted to. You begin to realize those people are invertebrates, afraid of you, more to the point, afraid of themselves. Afraid of anything different, anything sensitive. Funny thing about sensitivity, when you think about it, all of the world's great art, music, painting, sculpture, dance, theater, exist because of it. Sensitivity is also somehow about caring about others, caring about the planet, and yet the world is so scared of males being sensitive. Caring. Somehow, caring plus sensitive equals girly equals freak equals weak. In case that's all somehow a part of men, too. Because what would that be saying? How would it question what it means to be a guy? What would it say about guydom and so-called macho men? While you're lying on the couch in pain and staring at the ceiling and trying to forget a certain someone, you also begin to think about the people who watch and do nothing, say nothing, let it go on and on, without intervening or objecting. Teachers, principals, otherwise law-abiding citizens living comfortably, numbly in affluent suburbia. Parents, coaches, average Joes leading average, unaware, unexamined lives. And of course, one dumb gay jock. They are responsible for doing nothing, for not speaking up, and so beatings and bullying and cyberbullying continue against the different or the simple or the vulnerable. Fag thrashings happen every day, somewhere. Not to mention other hate crimes and violence against the misfit or misshapen or the darker skinned or the plain unlucky, victims of intolerance and ignorance. So I felt that that was probably a very impactful quote from the book. It's actually near the end, but I feel like it doesn't give too much away because it's kind of what the entire book is about the inequality and unfairness that people face just because of their sexual orientation. But overall, I definitely think that it is a great book to kind of address sexual orientation and the stigmas around it. Now to address the picture book. It's titled Worm Loves Worm. It is by J.J. Austrian, and it was illustrated by Mike Curato, and it was published in 2016. So the theme of this book aligns with the theme of Chance to Dance for You, as it also has a focus on sexuality and reducing the need for binary understanding of gender and sexuality. The characters in the book are actually different bugs. There are worms, the cricket, the beetle, the bees, and the spider. So the story is about the bugs helping to plan a wedding between the characters Worm and Worm. Yes, the worms do both have the same name. So as the bugs begin to help plan for a traditional wedding with the best beetle from the groom and the bride's bees for the bride, they run into a problem. Who will be the bride and who will be the groom? So I'm actually just going to read a couple pages from the book that I feel are the most important and go along with the theme that I'm using the book for. So, the bees are speaking here. But which one of you is the bride? Asks the bees. How can we be the bride's bees if we don't know who the bride is? I can be the bride, says Worm. I can too, says Worm. But one of you has got to be the groom, or how can I be the best beetle? Asks Beetle. I can be the groom, says Worm. I can too, says Worm. We can be both. Amazing, says Spider. Really? Ask Beetle and the bees. Wait, says Cricket. That isn't how it's always been done. Then we'll just change how it's done, says Worm. Yes, says Worm. And so they were married because Worm loves Worm. So I enjoyed this book for the same reason that I enjoyed reading Chance to Dance for You, because it addresses such a big social issue these days. I believe that it's important for students to understand that there should not be a normal and an abnormal type of sexuality. Instead, all sexuality should be accepted as equal. So this book addresses the topic in a unique way that I actually really like. It shows that two worms are being married. And there's no information of biological sexuality, rather just two individuals of the same species. I like this because it is to say that individuals do not have to be defined by biological sexuality as boy or girl. Rather, it is important to look at love and sexuality as two humans that found each other and love each other, two individuals of the same species. I also like how the author included the skepticism of the cricket, stating that this isn't how it's always been done, because for simplicity's sake, the cricket is right, this isn't how it has been done traditionally, but when the worms reply with, then we'll just change how it's done, it teaches so much more than just acceptance. It teaches children to not shy away from controversial topics just because it isn't the traditional way of doing things. It teaches students to think about things, to live their lives the way they feel it fits right for them. I think that this is so incredibly important for children in today's society because it is important that children understand that choice exists in our world, even where it may not feel like it. I truly believe that by introducing topics like these with younger children, we really do foster a world of acceptance and a world where children feel safe. I think that 100% we need to be teaching our children from a young age that normal doesn't necessarily exist unless normal is just that two people are allowed to be together if they so choose.
Learning outcomes.
As for learning outcomes, I looked at the Social Studies 20-1 outcomes, specifically General Outcomes 1, 3, and 4. General Outcome 1 is that students will explore the impacts of globalization on their lives. I found that the specific learning outcomes 1.1 through 1.3, as well as 1.6 and 1.8, can be addressed by talking about sexual orientation and identity. These specific learning outcomes allow us to acknowledge, appreciate, explore, and examine different identities and how globalization impacts them. General Outcome 3 is that students will understand economic, environmental, and other impacts of globalization. I found that the specific learning outcomes 3.2 and 3.7 may also be applicable as they focus on interdependent relationships among the economy, people, and the environment, as well as explore relationships among people, the land, and globalization. General Outcome 4 is that the students will examine their roles and responsibilities in a globalizing world. I found that outcomes 4.1 through 4.4, 4.7, 4.8, and 4.11 can be addressed by talking about sexual orientation and identity. These outcomes focus on quality of life of individuals and communities, global citizenship, human rights, and how globalization has affected individuals and communities. For classroom instruction, I think that I would use the picture book, Worm Loves Worm, as an approach for a lesson about identity. This would broaden the conversation and bring current topics into the classroom, allowing for a greater understanding of what identity can really be. I would like to use the novel, Chance to Dance for You, as a reading to complete throughout the lesson, as it also broadens our understanding of identity. It would be interesting to use these books and have the students develop something like a mind map to display different identities that are expressed throughout the books, as well as how they relate back to globalization.